Thank you. Thank you very much for first invitation here and to meet again with Alain Gresh. We've been working together on these topics, not only on these topics, mainly also we started talking about the Middle East, and then I've been involved in commissions and talking about the situation, especially in France, the situation of Muslims. But of course the picture is a bigger one about Europe, so thank you for inviting us this evening and for your introduction. I think that the most important thing this evening will be our discussion, but also the discussion with you and some of the concerns and views that we may share about being European Muslims, so Muslim Europeans, and at the same time, of course, Swiss Muslim and Muslim Swiss in the way we are talking about it. Let me just start with a short introduction with 3 main points, because I think that very often when we speak about to be a European Muslim, and this was the case, I wrote a book called To Be a European Muslim. At that time it was criticized by both Europeans and also Muslims, saying no, we don't speak about European Muslims, we speak about being a Muslim in Europe. And my take on this was, no, we are European Muslim, European by culture, Muslim by religion, and there is no problem. And in the book I was mainly talking about the new presence of Muslims, and I refer to 2 things which are very important for us. Because people are asking, is it possible to be a European Muslim, as if it's new, it's a new phenomenon. I'm just coming from Montenegro. This morning I was there. And when we speak about Eastern Europe, we say, okay, look, that's a joke. There have been European Muslims for centuries, and they don't have a problem being European and Muslims at the same time. It's true for the, we know about Bosnian, and of course, because of, in fact, we realized that there are Muslims in Europe the very moment they started to be persecuted and killed. But I think that if we look at what they have been doing, and this very, very deep legacy that is coming from Eastern Europe, it might be that in Western Europe we have to learn more about our fellow Europeans. And this is what I said to the Pope when he started talking about Europe, saying, you know, the roots of Europe are Greek and Christians, and my answer to this is, it might be that Europe has to start a discussion with itself, because there is an ignorance and self-ignorance about what is making Europe. So I would say here that we have to be cautious when we speak about this. And we are between idealizing the Andalusia and what happened there and talking about this. And even in our way of dealing with our cultural, intellectual, philosophical, artistic legacy, we are neglecting the fact that Islam is a European religion, and it's in the roots of this European identity for centuries coming from Andalusia. And then if you look at the other side of the spectrum, you see that it was in Eastern Europe for centuries. So we have to stop looking at ourselves in Switzerland and in Western Europe as if the center of everything is us, because we are industrialized societies and looking at the situation elsewhere. This is one point which is important. But having said that, we cannot deny that after the First World War, and more importantly in between the 2 world wars and then after the Second World War, something new happened in Western Europe. And it's not because the concept of European Islam, and once again I will come back to this, but it's not because the concept of European, the reality of European Islam is an old reality that we cannot, that we can neglect the fact that in Western Europe, in Switzerland, in France, in Germany, in Britain, there is something which is a new phenomenon, a new presence. So there is an old intellectual presence, there is an old geographical presence, and there is a new presence after the Second World War, with people who came, who were mainly immigrants. So we have to acknowledge this. This is not enough. So to say that it's possible in historical, from a historical perspective, it is. But what are the new problems that we are facing with the new presence of Western European Muslims? This is what we are talking about here, and the way we have to deal with it. I would say that I have been talking about this over the last, in fact, 30 years. And, you know, I just republished a book. This was quite interesting. A book in French called Des Musulmans et de l'Islam. It was published in November. And I had people coming to me and say, you know what, you have deepened your thought about the issue. I said, that's fine. This book was written 18 years ago. In fact, it's a publication. We published it again. And saying, no, it's an old book that I'm publishing again because things are not moving in some of the main questions, the same questions. And yet at the same time, I would say that we have to be very cautious here to look at it as if there is a status quo that we are not really moving. Some of the issues, we keep on repeating them, but we are not aware that, for example, coming from the European Muslims, there is a great deal of evolution in the way they are looking at issues. Because the first, second, and third generation, now we are reaching in some countries, in Britain, in France, the fourth, the fifth generation. We keep on talking about the second generation. There is something in the way we talk which is quite interesting, and it reveals a mindset which is we always speak about second generation of young Muslims. After 50 years, still young, and it's still the second generation. It means that we don't get it. We don't get the historical evolution that they are not so young. And then it's not the second, it's the third, the fifth generation. And even here in Switzerland, now we are reaching, I'm from the second generation, and now I'm a grandfather. So take it as it is. So now we are reaching the fourth generation, if we are right with this. So I think that on that point, it's important to get this historical evolution. Add to this something which is important, that we are not talking about it enough, and the responsible for this are the Muslims themselves, is that over the last 60 years, 2 generations, the Islamic understanding, the Islamic thought, the contribution, the intellectual contribution of Muslim scholars, men and women, has been tremendous. And there are new answers to new problems. And for example, we are dealing, and this is why we keep on talking about integration, not getting that when it comes to religion, when it comes to citizenship, when it comes to identity, Muslims are moving. They are moving, and the new generations have new ideas, and they are understanding their presence in a completely new way. So we are using old terminology, not taking into account and being aware that the understanding is completely new, and that now you don't go to people and say, you know what, you have to integrate when this is the 4th generation, and we keep on talking about them, Swiss Muslim with an immigrant background. So this is what could be said about me, but what about my daughters and sons? What about the people who have been born here and then they are fathers and mothers? That's over. We have to stop talking about this, and this is why I am always repeating the success of integration is to stop talking about integration. And as long as we keep on talking about it, we are creating the problem, and I think on that it's problematic. So the historical perspective is important. We need to come to a deeper understanding, and Muslims on that field, on that side of the equation, should be much more vocal about, look, this is the way we understand our presence, this is the way we are understanding our identity. And we should not be the silent majority. The problem with the silent majority is too silent. Not talking enough about what is happening, the way we are expressing and understanding our presence. And then, as it was said, I keep on repeating that on the religious side, what we were talking about 2 generations ago, about religious integration, my point on this is that this is over. Now, for the Muslim consciousness, for the Muslim conscience, the point is not how do we integrate, it's how do we contribute to the society, which is completely different. It's that I acknowledge the fact that I'm Swiss, I acknowledge the fact that I am a European, this is who I am, I'm European by identity. And my question is not to be accepted, but to be an added value. Acceptance is over. It was at one point in history, and I'm talking here about the religious side of the equation, which is important. I'm not denying the fact that we have other problems, but these are not religious problems. They are socio-economic problems. They have to do with racism, they have to do with employment, they have to do with segregation, geographical segregation, and they have to do with urbanism and education. They have nothing to do with Islam. So this is very important to say, on the religious side, integration is done. How can we prove it? By looking at the Islamic discourse about what it means to be European. This is what is the mainstream Islamic discourse. I'm talking about the mainstream Islamic discourse because I also acknowledge something which is very important, that I'm not representative of the Muslim voice. There are many other voices that are disagreeing. Some of the Muslims in Europe, for example, they even think that I'm not really a Muslim. Some are putting me outside Islam. But what I'm saying here is that even though the media are talking very much about them, they are not the mainstream reality of Islam. These are marginal voices, very much heard in the media, not very much representative of what is happening on the ground. Once again, what does it mean? We cannot only blame the media. We have also to blame the Muslims, because the silent majority is too silent. Once again, always the same. So I would say here that we also have to understand that if, nature doesn't like emptiness, and if there is no voice to speak, some other voices are going to speak on the behalf of the Muslims, and this is what is happening, especially in Europe. Having said that, my main concern is to change the mindset by saying, willing it or not, we are going to live together. Willing it or not, Switzerland, Europe, these are pluralistic societies. The question, you can carry on being obsessed with where do you come from. My obsession today is where are we heading together? That's my question. My question is, how about our future? Because there is no choice. We are going to live together. So now if you want to create fractures and segregation and create problems and nurturing racism, that's fine, you can go for it. That's not my hope for our society. Our societies are pluralistic society, we have to deal with it, now we have to take responsibility for our common future. That's the other way around. It's to speak about and saying, look, which type of religious discourses that we have that could create problems? Yes, we have literalists, we have dogmatics, we have extremists. That's true, and this is for us the reality of challenging these discourses. But this is the religious intra-community dialogue, which is important. But on the bigger scale, what we need today is to come together and to ask ourselves what are we trying to do together. Now, when it comes to the discussion that we have, and this is why I'm saying, look at the evolution and the way we have to deal with it. Wherever you go to the, I live in the UK, I'm a Swiss citizen, I know quite well the situation in France, in Germany, I have been traveling around Europe. Wherever you go, when it comes to the question of Islam, there are mainly four things that are always there in times of crisis or in times of living. The first thing that we are dealing with, and came many times when we were facing crisis, is the question of values. It's as if the Muslims don't have the same values as the Europeans. So just after 7/7 in London, what we had is the Prime Minister saying we have to define Britishness. The Minister of National Identity in France is Frenchness. Get builders, Dutchness. Frenchness, Dutchness, Britishness, and say, okay, what do you mean by this? It's as if we are having a set of values that are to be distinguished from the Islamic values. And I say, if we are serious about it, and if you look at the Islamic discourse and Islamic understanding, we don't have a problem of value. We don't have a problem of value. What we are cherishing about freedom, equality, and dignity, all these values are as Islamic as they are Western values. And my point here is, if you want to talk about universal value, the only way to talk about universal value is shared universal values. The universal values are the values that we are sharing. And as a Muslim, as a European Muslim, I challenge anybody to come and say, you have a problem of value. No, I don't have even with the freedom of expression. It's as if we are pushing to the extreme what freedom of expression should be, to show to the Muslim you are not really Europeans, which is completely wrong. There is nothing in any society which is called absolute freedom of expression. We have legal limits, so that's fine. But it's true that we have to understand, and the Muslims and the European Muslims or the Western Muslims should understand in the process that what they were not used to in Muslim majority countries is something which is changing. So you are free. By the authority of the law, you are free to speak, and I am free as well as a citizen to ignore what you're doing. And all what was said, and it started, remember, with the, in fact it started before this with Salman Rushdie's fatwa. And this was something which was happening mainly it started in the UK and Europe, and then it went to Pakistan, to Iran, came back to Pakistan and other countries. But if you look at the situation with the Danish culture, if you are serious about it, you will see that European Muslims were very wise in the way they reacted to this. In fact, it's not them who created the problem. It's that some of them went to Egypt, by the way, paid by the Egyptian embassy to go there to present some of the caricatures, and then it became an international issue. But in Europe, the first reaction of Danish Muslims was very wise. For 4 months, no reaction. We're not going to fall into the trap. Exactly the same in the Netherlands. In fact, what we can see with European Muslims is that they get it. They understand the game. Even Geert Wilders was obliged to thank the Muslims for not reacting. When he was saying, I'm going to turn apart the Quran, and said, okay, go ahead. And they started making joke about him. So the point here is, be careful. The international reaction, emotional reactions, doesn't say everything about the European Muslims who are now involved in the society and understand this. And I would say here that as to the values, we don't have a problem. It doesn't mean that there is no critical discussion that we need to have. And it's positive. A pluralistic society should be a society where we can talk about values, and we should talk about this. We have to reconcile ourselves with philosophy and understanding values. What do you mean by human dignity? What do you mean by freedom? But to say, by definition, you Muslims cannot be European, or you are at odds with the European values, this is completely wrong. Historically speaking, very often when it comes, for example, to philosophy, and this is why we are neglecting so much about the Islamic contribution to the European identity with philosophy. I'm closer to Aristotle than many of the Catholic thinkers who were dealing with the Greek philosophy. So to be taught and lectured about how do you deal with rationality, okay, look, it might be something missing in your culture, in your knowledge, in your sense of history. So I would say here that as to the value, it's very often something which it's not the case. Very quickly, 3 other concepts that are important. Identity. And identity, once again, the definition of the Islamic identity is that if you are a Muslim, you cannot be Swiss, for example. And this was my discussion with Preisinger in Switzerland. The fact that I'm a Swiss Muslim, the only qualification that I am a Swiss Muslim, Muslims makes me less Swiss. And my answer to him was to say, you know what, my way of dealing with the constitution, saying that this constitution should respect the diversity means that in the future, the way I'm protecting the Swiss constitution makes me more Swiss than you. You are betraying the Swiss spirit. And this is where something which is very important for us, is to position ourselves as who are we talking about, and how are we talking about the values. And here, as to this identity, look at what was said. Yes, it's true. 2 generations ago, the scholars were talking about first the Muslim identity as something which could be problematic with being a citizen. This has changed. The mainstream Islamic discourse is saying you can be a Swiss, you can be a German, you can be a British, there is no problem. You are Swiss and Muslim at the same time, and there is no contradiction. The mainstream Islamic discourse everywhere in the West is this one. And I have been saying this for the last almost more than 1 generation. I have multiple identities. And this is also something that we have to bring into the discussion. Because my added value as a Muslim, as a Swiss Muslim, is also to challenge my fellow citizens by saying, be careful, don't reduce your identity to your nationality. Your nationality, this could be nationalism, and this could end up with xenophobia and racism. So you know what? I'm a gift. I'm helping my fellow Swiss, French, British citizens to avoid being nationalist and racist. So the other way around is the way we have to define identity, and the way also we have to bring into the discussion the fact that we have multiple identities, and this is something which is the future and should be part of the discussion. And this is also what I'm calling past integration, is that I'm a Swiss, and I have a memory. And the point that some of my fellow European citizens want me to understand that my legacy coming from Egypt, or the legacy coming from Turkey, or the legacy coming from Bosnia, or the legacy coming from Algeria, or coming from Morocco, or coming from Turkey, it's a liability. I say that's wrong. This is a wealth. This is something that I'm adding to the society. So it's not, by the way, it's not a philosophical discourse. It's something that has to be visible in the way you eat, in the way you share the culture, in the everyday. So you know that the first meal that you have in the UK now is curry in the UK. Curry is becoming the first choice for the British people, added value. So it's good with eating, it's good with football, it should be good with culture and intellectual added presence. You understand my point? It's very easy with music, it's very easy with eating, it's less easy with culture, arts, imagination, and intellectual contribution. And I think that this is why we have to talk about this. There is something also which is important, and it might be a very, very difficult one. It's the question of loyalty. And very often loyalty is to have to be loyal to your country. And you know the question that we have now. It's a silly question, but it's everywhere. Who are you first? A Swiss or a Muslim? A French or a Muslim? As if it's a contradiction. But the true question behind this, it's not only identity, it's your loyalty. Who are you first is to what are you loyal? The question is, are you loyal to the law of God or the law of the country? Means, what if we have a problem with people of your fellow religion, for example? And this is something which should be clear. The mainstream Islamic discourse is you should be loyal to the country. It's the mainstream. But it's clear today that within the Muslim communities around the West, we still have to deal with it. But it's not clear. It's not clear for many Muslims the way you have to be loyal to the country. And loyal to the country means that, for example, this being part of a religious community and being part of a social and national community in which way you are between the two and you are positioning yourself. And this is why the very important discourse based on we belong to our principles and not to our religious community. What does it mean? I should be critical of my religious community if my religious community is doing wrong. I have to be critical towards any Muslim brothers and sisters in religion if he or she is wrong. But this is exactly the way I have to be with my country. Don't ask me, because I am a Swiss Muslim, to show my loyalty by being blindly supporting the Swiss government. That will never happen. I will support my government when it's wrong, it's right, and I will be critical when my government is wrong. The only true loyalty is a critical loyalty. With your rationality, with your religion, with whatever. The point is that my belonging is a critical loyalty. So this is why we come with something which, once again, has nothing to do with integration. It has to do with post-integration. If I'm a true American, where some of the Muslims in the United States of America, and it's also echoing what we had here in Britain after 7/7, to show that they are very much supporting the government. They were so scared to be critical towards Tony Blair or towards George W. Bush, because what he was saying is that, be careful, you are with us or against us. And when you say this to Muslims just after September the 11th, it means if I dare to say that I'm against you, it means that I'm not a true American. And my answer is, it's exactly the opposite. The true American dare to stand up and to say to their government, you're wrong. That's the true citizen. The second-class citizen is scared. The true citizen is critical. So this is also what we have to do and to come together. This is the post-integration discourse, which is, no, my loyalty to my country is a critical loyalty. And you're not going to ask me to be blindly supportive. Exactly what happened after Charlie in France, where some people say, okay, are you Charlie or are you not? We're just talking about this before. We have to be very cautious with national and the reality of the psychology just after a crisis. Sometimes it's not the time to say things. And I said it when I was in Switzerland by saying, I'm not Charlie. But if you mean by being Charlie that you are supporting freedom of expression and you are against killing the people, I'm Charlie. If you mean by this that I have to support their sense of humor, I'm not. So this position of being clear as where we stand in the discussion, it's important. So I still have 5 minutes and I just wanted, so loyalty is important, but it's part of a discussion where you can see today that if you look at the second, third, and even, Switzerland should also look at what is happening around in France, and even if the discourse is difficult, what is happening around is within the Muslim communities and among the European Muslim citizens, there is an awareness, there is something which is moving and being much more visible within. Outside, I mean, I'm outside the community and within our societies. There is a fourth point which is important because we are dealing with it today and it's going to be very, very important in the coming future. I keep on repeating there is only one Islam, but there are many interpretations of Islam and many ways of dealing with it. And there is something which is missing among the Muslims here, which is the intra-community dialogue. And to acknowledge this, to acknowledge the diversity of views. And I may disagree with some interpretations. For example, my position is that I don't think that the niqab, covering the face, is Islamic. I think it's one interpretation which was an extensive interpretation of something that was to be done by the Prophet's wife, but not by all the Muslim women. I don't think that this is right. And I have an internal dialogue with Salafi literalists that are promoting this. I disagree with them. At the same time, I have a dialogue with the governments, and I had this dialogue in France, and I had this dialogue with in the UK. I took a position against Tony Blair's wife. Tony Blair's wife was of the opinion that we have to support this, and she was ready to be the lawyer. And on this, we had a discussion about this because I agreed on her on one thing, and I was disagreeing with her on another dimension. But the point is that I may disagree with some of interpretation or Islamic interpretation, but as a European, I should protect the freedom of conscience. That I disagree with you, but I am going to protect your right to go as far as you want. So I was saying to the French Parliament, for example, I don't think that the niqab is Islamic, but I am against any law preventing a woman from wearing it. And by the way, it's hypocritical the way you are doing it, because the people coming from Saudi Arabia, you are not going to ask their wife to remove the niqab. They are too rich, too wealthy. That's just in the suburbs you are going to do it, not in the Champs-Élysées. That's the reality. And this is exactly what is happening. At the end of the day, they are selective in the way they are implementing. But for us, we also have to come to this discussion. The intra-community, this diversity among Muslims, is something that the Muslims should be the first to tackle it. And you cannot just blame the West or blame the media to talk about some issues where the Muslims are, once again, too silent in this critical discussion. And also what is happening today, which is going to have a very important impact on us, is this divide between Shia and Sunni. It's coming from the Middle East, but it's coming now here. And what we see in the UK or in the States is very dangerous. And it's on both sides. The leaders on both sides are nurturing this sense of division and who is Muslim and who is not. So this is also something which is important. Having said this, and looking at this, the last two generations, we can see that things are moving. The sense of identity is different. This belonging to the society is different. And now you talk to young Swiss people, French, German, we have a meeting of the European Muslim Network. I'm chairing the European Muslim Network. Our discourse is representing the great majority of what we have today in Europe, and it's exactly the same in the States. So I think that here we have to acknowledge this, and this is a new stage. Now, just to be quick on some of the issues that are problematic, and this is where our governments and us as citizens, we have to be much more involved in this. The problem is that we are not going to solve the problem of European Islam or pluralistic society if us as citizens, I say us, and I mean by us, every European citizens, Muslims or people of other faiths, all of us. It's not us Muslims versus you, I don't know who. No, it's us Europeans. Us Swiss people, that we have to be involved in the discussion by reconciling ourselves with politics. And to be quite clear that any political party that is instrumentalizing the socio-economic injustices to make them cultural and to ethnicize these problems should find us as citizens by saying no. This has nothing to do with culture, nothing to do with religion, it has to do with socio-economic problems, and we need to solve the problem of unemployment and geographical and urban segregation. We have to be involved in this discussion. But once again, we cannot just sit down and say the governments are not doing the job, because the governments are going to do the easiest way to explain their policy if they have a policy. But on our side, we need to be involved in this discussion. I'm sorry to see too many of my fellow European citizens, they are not involved enough in this discussion. They accept this rhetoric that, in fact, unemployment is coming out of the reality of these foreigners, and creating a new category which was not there, that we have now foreign citizens. It never happened before. So if you are a Muslim French or French Muslim, you are not exactly French, and you are perceived as too much a Muslim, and we are going to explain the socio-economic problems in the suburbs, for example, with this. Exactly the same in the UK, exactly the same in the States, with the African American community. So we need to be involved in this discussion, because the only way to come to the post-integration reality is to focus on some of the problems that we have and to circumscribe the problem, the socio-economic problem. And the point is that the great majority of the people who are facing socio-economic problems, in fact, have this Muslim background. So taking this and this, it's very easy to say the problem is there. In fact, it's cultural, but it has nothing to do with this. And this is where we have, once again, to be involved in this. And the second is, once again, as citizens, to be very clear about what we are all facing. The far-right party are not winning. By the way, it's quite difficult to say this in Switzerland, because the UDC is the leading party in this country. But in fact, the most dangerous thing that we have today is not that they are leading. For example, the Front National in France, or UKIP now in the UK, who are, even if they only have 4 million are supporting the party. 4 million citizens, it's quite a number. And the problem is 4 million are supporting the party, but how many are supporting the rhetoric? That's the point. The point is that their rhetoric is in Cameron's mouth. It's in Sarkozy's mouth. Not only mouth, mind and heart. With some of the people. So we can see that it's everywhere in the political spectrum, that the rhetoric is beyond the party. And this is where this populism is very important, based on fear, on very simplistic perception of the other that are creating problems. And this is where we can't speak about us living together if we are not clear on the socio-economic conditions and the political and social conditions that we need to promote. Now, there is a third thing, and I will come to my conclusion. The third thing is about something that we cannot deny, which is the interconnectedness between what we are facing in Europe and what is happening now in the Middle East or around the world. You can't just deny the fact that you have to deal with violence and you have to deal with extremism, and it's coming back to us. What happened in, terrorism is what we call terrorism, but this violent extremism in the States, in Europe, everywhere, it's coming back to us. And there is something here which is, once again, very important. Why? Because we may keep on repeating that, in fact, we are talking about extremist Muslims, but you know that it has an impact on the image of Islam, whatever. So this is where we need also to be quite clear. And I keep on repeating, we cannot just be apologetic every time there is a problem, say, okay, no, we are very nice, this is not Islam. No, we have to take a religious stand on this. If somebody, in the name of Islam, is going to kill innocent people, Muslims should speak out. And you know what? The silent majority is too silent. Too silent. In this, we have to be quite clear here. But it doesn't mean that every time something happens, you have to say, oh no, it's not me, I'm nice. And that's also something which is a more institutionalized, structural way of dealing with these problems. It's important, and not to let some people using this and instrumentalizing this in a way. And sometimes, you can see this, bad experiences or violent attacks could have a positive impact on the long run by helping the people to wake up. We are talking about this, Alain was saying about what is happening in France, that after Charlie, we see things that are moving and discussions happening. It happened exactly the same in the States. It happened exactly the same in Denmark. So it's sad, we have to condemn, but now we have to take the best of it, out of it, by being involved in discussion and dialogue, and this is also important. Last thing that I wanted to say, and this is where I think that there is an effort that should be made by European Muslims to go from this integration. In fact, I'm going to surprise you, but I think that the next step for European Muslims is to speak less about Islam. As much as you have to start speaking about integration, stop talking about Islam and just behave as citizens with your Islamic values. And it means not, because the problem is, we are creating a mindset which is problematic. I have one French presenter, TV presenter. He told me once, I want to invite you in a program where we are not going to speak about Islam at all. Because you know how I'm perceived as the Muslim intellectual. So I went to the program and we were talking about everything but Islam. Nothing about Islam. And the people were surprised. Why is he coming to speak about it? And you know who were the people who sent me on Facebook, why were you in this program? The Muslims. The Muslims said, you have to go and speak about Islam. I said, no, that's the point. Stop, behave with your principles. Behave as Muslims and stop putting and stamp here, I'm a Muslim. Or having, as in the States, Proud to be a Muslim. What's that? Proud to be a Muslim. You have to put this on your heart. I think that's wrong. That's the trap. And our contribution in arts, it's in fact for Muslims to be able to speak about economy, to speak about social justice, to speak about arts, to speak about everything, to be everywhere, to be visible, not by the way we dress, but the way we speak, the way we behave, the way we are the added value. That's the real post-integration process, and we have to come to this. So I would say here, less Islam in our speeches and more principles in our presence. In the way we deal with things, that should be, and I'm saying this because I don't want at the end to say that this is only coming from the surrounding society. The Western European Muslims should stop with the victim mentality and come with this, and they will find their fellow citizens. Millions of fellow citizens are ready for that. They are ready, they are expecting, they are hoping that this is possible. Now we have to make it possible. To make it possible, and it's an intellectual revolution, it's a psychological revolution, and it's needed to come to this and to say we are able to do it that way. So these are some of the points that I wanted to make by being involved. To have the historical perspective, it's important. To look at the situation by being able to say what is religious and what is not. We don't have a religious problem of integration. There could be a recognition of the presence, but we have always the same, a social problem of justice and social justice through education, through employment. This is what we have now. And the third thing is we have to carry on moving and being able to be people who are not segregated into their religious identity, but the human identity and the citizen, the civic identity is something that is part of our future.
Thank you.
Besten Dank. Thanks, Tariq Ramadan. We will proceed to have a debate, a discussion between Alain Gresh and Tariq Ramadan.
Okay.
Let's begin by the end, because I think the end is very important, to speak less about Islam. And I will come to our encounter and our discussion for many years. What are the basis of this dialogue between you and me, I think? It's not Islam or my philosophical point of view. We can discuss of it, of course, it is interesting, and I'm interested in religion, in the history of religion, etc. But it is more about what society are we living in and how we can change this society. And the point of, we can have very different point of view, philosophical point of view, and thinking that injustice, what happened in Palestine, what happened in the Middle East, we have common ground to solve it. And I think you said, and I agree with you, there is a very big danger of Islamization of all the problems we have. And you must, we are living in Europe especially, the most serious crisis since the 30s. Economical, social crisis, which create really very bad atmosphere with the development of extreme right parties, with chauvinism, racism, nationalism, etc., etc. We have been through this in Europe. I mean, we know the history. And we know how in the history it's easy to find scapegoats to say, okay, we have this problem because there are the Jews who are there and who are occupying our country. Or to say today we have the Muslims who are there and they are the cause of all our problems. And we should be very clear that most of the problems the European society is living had nothing to do with Islam. After Charlie, I have been invited in some French school, very few because I'm not very often invited, but one, it was very interesting because the school, I mean, it was 50 young people from 14 to 16. 95% were Muslim. When I say Muslim, meaning their name is Fatima or Muhammad, most of them think they are Muslim. They don't know anything about it. Very frankly, they know there is Quran and Muhammad, but when you begin to speak a little about religion, they don't know. It's really a strong identity. And we discussed 3 hours about Middle East and Palestine, etc., etc. And the teacher told me, you know, in general, when we have them in class, we can't have them more than 40 minutes. They will explode. And they were 3 hours with you. And I tried to think why. And I think one of the reasons was the fact that they saw somebody coming from Paris, which is, this school was 20 kilometers from Paris, but it's another world. Seeing somebody coming from Paris, non-Muslim, who speaks with them with respect. Only this. And who thinks that what they can say is interesting. But after this, they sent me letters to thank me. And really, I was shocked. Not only the orthograph was unbelievable, but even the way of thinking and the way to express was really a problem. And it's not because they are Muslim. It's a failure of the public school in France for most of the poor in France. An important part of poor people are Muslim, but it has nothing to do with Islam. And this was after Charlie Hebdo. And after Charlie Hebdo, all the speeches of the Minister of Education of the government was saying, oh, these young people are uneducated, we are going to learn to teach them what is laicité. Really, they don't, I mean, it's unbelievable to have this kind. So, I say this Islamization of the problem is very dangerous. And we, I mean, we, like Tariq said, we, I mean Muslim, non-Muslim, all French or European citizens, we must fight against this and show that this problem are social and economic problem. There is also ideological, I will come back to it. But what is very important, and perhaps the step from what Tariq said in, I mean, the evolution since 30 or 40 years, which is very important, it is now we should have a common struggle about this problem. And this is really, I have also the same questions that Tariq about where is the Muslim community in these struggles. And unfortunately, but for many reasons I can understand, they are not a very active part of it. They are not very active in the trade unions, they are not very active in mobilization. You can see them, for example, for Palestine, you will see many Muslims going in the street. Okay, but I think it's very important to have this common struggle for the changing of the society and for fighting against the crisis and against discrimination. But of course, there is an ideological problem, and we cannot. We have, you know, I said I don't want to shock you, but I have. I say I don't know. We say in France there are 5 to 6 million Muslims. I don't know what it means because you know. When you ask people who feel that they are Muslim, you have half of them who say, we are Muslim. But you have a new phenomenon, which I can see in the middle class, which is completely integrated in the way the French laïcs see the integration. They drink wine, eat pork, etc. This, the French will consider, was considering at some times that it is a good integration. But now these people, I met with them and they say, you know, I'm defining myself as a Muslim atheist. And but it has some meaning. That the meaning that we are, I mean, we are pushing all the Muslims, which way they are choosing, how, independently of the way they are choosing, we are pushing them in a corner and saying them, you are Muslim. And so, for example, I have friends in teachers, a part of the teacher from Muslim origin don't dare now to go to the room of the teachers because they are attacked permanently about laicity, about what happened in the resort and what happened in any place. And this is very dangerous. And on this, we have also an ideological and political struggle to make. But we should make, I think, both of them. And on the ideological point of view, I will ask Tariq about it. I wrote also a book about Islam, La République et le Monde 10 years ago. My daughter was very young and she was not very interested. Now, 10 years after, she is very involved now in this question, and she read the book and she told me, but nothing has changed in 10 years. And in some way, it's also true. And this contradiction between the fact that many things have changed, but at the same time, at the ideological level, or when we see the press, or what we see the intellectual, it seems that we are at the same stage, or even worse. And perhaps this is a question, Tariq.
No, that's a very critical point, because I think that over the last, I would say, 20 years, the Muslims, and even here in Switzerland, that's the case. You can see that things are moving, mindsets, understanding are moving. But in the media, and coming from the political landscape, same questions repeated, the same problem. It's as if we don't see what is happening. We don't acknowledge the fact that we are moving. So that's the problem. Is that, for example, so many times we have French Muslims, British Muslims say it's always the same question, always the same rhetoric that is coming about integration, about, for example, in France, whatever happened is just after Charlie say when we have to teach them what laicity means. Look, that's over. That's over. That's not the point. That's and it has nothing to do with this. It has to do with the exactly as it was, as you said, is that pushing and pushing and pushing the Muslims to identify themselves first as Muslims. You will have this reaction, and then you say, "Oh, but you have now to be secular." So you keep on telling me that I have to be a Muslim, that I am a Muslim, even though if I don't define myself like this, and then at the end, by pushing me when I acknowledge that I am a Muslim, oh, but the secular system is. So I think that we have a vicious circle here.
They ask you to condemn Charlie as a Muslim, but if you express yourself as a Muslim, they say, oh, you are a communitarian.
That's true. That's something that we can see everywhere. And if we connect these discussions with what we have today in this country, it's very critical. It's very critical. And I think that the Swiss we have also to get a sense of what is happening in Germany, what is happening in the UK, what is happening in France, because it's coming to us. And you know that, for example, even Preisinger went to Paris and had a meeting with two of the people who are the worst when it comes to the discussion about Islam, Marine Le Pen in France and Geert Wilders in the Netherlands. And they are creating a network of people coming with the same ideology. So it's coming back to us. Who would have thought that in this country, where we have only 4 minarets, they are going to win and to have this coming to us? Who would have thought that? It means it's very powerful when it comes to emotions and when it comes to spreading fear all around. So I think that this is where But once again, our discussion, and this is something that Alain Gresh was, the point which is important with our discussion here is not that we agree on many points, is the fact that Alain Gresh, with other intellectuals in Europe, are putting some question, and they are also critical and questioning the Muslims as to their position. And what he said right now is something which is important. How is it that so many European Muslims, European citizens with a Muslim background, are not involved in social justice? They are not involved when it comes to education. They are not involved. When we are dealing with education, the first question is, oh, we need an Islamic school. What's that? Is this the answer? The answer is the state school system is having 90% of our kids. If not more than that, if not 100%, but there is no Islamic school, so how are we going to... So when you have a problem with the school system, you isolate yourself, you do exactly what Heisinger and Blocher, this is exactly what they want. Isolate yourself and do the job as they want it. So this is where we have to understand that these critical questions, how do we are involved in but the point is that, once again, I repeat this because I think that I'm not scared to speak about an intellectual revolution with European Muslims. Over 2 generations, what is happening is tremendously important. And add to this, by the way, just to tell you something also, that we should understand our responsibility, we as Europeans, people of all faiths and religions and without religions, is to understand that what is happening in the West has already a tremendous impact in Muslim majority countries. In the discourse. It's just huge. You cannot just imagine the way they are listening to what is happening in Europe, in the countries here, because it has an impact. So, and it's something that it's also important for us to get it right.
You know, one thing you said about the political parties and the responsibility, I will be more critical. I think it's not only the right-wing parties who are responsible for what's happening. I think one of the main reasons for the development of the extreme right in general and Islamophobia in particular is the fact that the left parties, mainly the Socialist Party, are not fighting against it. On the contrary, they are in some way helping the development of this. And it's, many people say, you know, the extreme right is coming from the social crisis, which is true, etc., etc. But it's coming also by our defeatism, or our non-fight against these trends, and the fact that nobody is clearly saying we must stop this, and we must fight against this. And we have a Prime Minister who is now Minister of Foreign Affairs, Laurent Fabius, who said once, the National Front is putting the good question but giving the bad answers. But the problem is, no, they are not putting the good question. The good question for them is immigration. It is this the main reason for the crisis in France and security. And now the Socialist Party in France has accepted this, I mean, immigration and security as the main problem for the French. And so you will have, I mean, in the media, always we will speak about security, always we will speak about immigration, in a country where you have, in fact, 5 million unemployed. You know what was the first decision? 4 years ago, the left wing won the Senate, I mean, the upper house in France. You know what was the first decision they took? A project of law to forbid the women who having putting staff to have boys at home, children at home, to guard children at home. I mean, this is a complete capitulation, and I think it is one of the reasons why we have the development of this extreme right, is the fact that there is no courageous answer to this propaganda. And it's very strange because for 30 years, the Socialist Party and the left have said, we are going to go on the same field that the Front National, so we will be able to stop it. And it's the contrary. And it's normal, because we have made their ideas acceptable for everybody, and so they are progressing, because people say we prefer the original to the copy. The second thing I want to say is what you said about loyalty. It's very important, because this question of loyalty has nothing to do with Muslim. It's an old question, of philosophical question. I think Jean-Jacques Rousseau wrote about it, saying, are we more loyal to our country or to general principle of human rights, etc., etc.? And of course, there is no easy answer, because at each time you must choose. But it's not a problem for the Muslim. I mean, it's a problem, and I think also we should say that we shouldn't Islamize this question. There was a problem during the Algerian war for the French citizen. Are we accepting the war? Are we going to in the army or not? A part of people decide not to go in the army, etc. It was the same in Vietnam, in United States and Vietnam. And I think it's very important. But again, it's important because you shouldn't accept the fact that you are pointed to say you are loyal or you are not loyal. You know, Le Figaro, which is a right-wing newspaper, as you know, made many things about this question of loyalty, etc. But every time a millionaire comes to Switzerland to put its money, the Figaro proves this is a proof only that the government is bad. It's not a proof of disloyalty. It's not a proof that you don't consider your country as important to put your money. No, it's a proof that the government is taking too much taxes from the riches.
Just one thing that I wanted to add about this, because it comes to Switzerland. You know, when we had these discussions just before the referendum on the minarets, I have been involved in the discussion in Switzerland. I went to, I don't know how many, I was in Lausanne, in the French-speaking cantons, because I studied 6 years German, but I lost everything, unfortunately. That's why, as a Swiss, I'm talking to you in English, which is almost a shame. So I'm trying to be a good Swiss anyway. A French good Swiss. But you know what? We were going and we were talking about this. And in the panels that we had, in all these cities, it was in Geneva, in Neuchâtel, in Lausanne, in Freiburg, we were the Socialist Party, the Green Party, the far left parties, and all were against the UDC on that. By saying, no, that's wrong, that's against freedom of conscience and everything. But in fact, when I was with them against the UDC. So we were together. Apparently, it was a front against the initiative. But in fact, I was listening to what my fellow socialist citizens, and they were always saying, we are against this, but we are not naive. We know that there are problems with Muslims, about women, about the headscarf. So you were listening to them, and in fact, they were against the initiative, but saying exactly what the people who were supporting this initiative were saying. We are scared as we are. So at the end, they were against the initiative, but nurturing exactly the fear that were supporting the initiative. And that's exactly the point, that the leftists or all the so-called traditional parties are not clear on this. We are against this, but we know that there is a problem with Islam, and they were nurturing this. And at the end, the one who made me realize this was in Neuchâtel, because at the end of the discussion, he was very smart. He looked at all the people and said, didn't you say that you were scared about this, and this, and this, and this, and this? That's exactly what I was saying. And I was on my own in the middle, I was saying, he's right. He was right. And I think that the political courage is not there. But at the end it comes to us, citizens. Because we can, acknowledge this, but there are too many citizens that are not involved in the discussion. And among them, of course, the people who are talking about equality and social justice. There is a lack of political awareness. And this is why we are driven by forces that are dealing much more with our fear than with our political awareness. Actually, we start with the questions, with the...
Hört man uns? Ja.
So,
The question.
Thank you, Dr. Tariq Ramadan, for this good speech or talk. And I want to connect 2 points. Dr. Tariq Ramadan said there is one Islam. And he says we have to encourage also the intra-community discussions. This one Islam, what is the definition of this one Islam? Or what is the concept of this Islam? Is it the traditional Islam, or we have to encourage or to take from the Quran a new definition or a new concept for Islam for the European community? For example, I have a definition and I hope it is right. According to the Quran, there are just three conditions or pillars for Islam. Everybody who believes in God or believes in the life after this life, and he does something good in this life, he is a Muslim. So according to this definition, I think most of the Europeans are Muslims. And this is just like a person who finishes the study of medicine. He is just a physician. But if he specializes in the medicine, he is a cardiologist or psychiatrist, he is also just a physician, but with more specialization. So we have the minimum 3 conditions for every Muslim. Why? Because we have to be aware of the impact of tradition for the Islam, the definition of Islam. And I think this is more far away from Quran. In Quran he says, Man aslama wajhahu lillahi, who submits his direction to God and he does good deeds, he is a Muslim. So we have the word Muslim for a person who does something good in this life and he believes in God and believes in the life after this life. If he has many more conditions, then he will be more specialized mu'min or just specialized Muslim. Why I said this? Because now we say there is a European Islam. Why European Islam? We have Asian Islam, African Islam. And I'm thinking as he speaks about Islam, about, for example, Japanese Islam. Well, we have no problem. We have it here in media about the problem of Japanese Islam, Chinese Islam. Why is it European Islam have a problem? Thank you.
We take many questions, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe one.
Now we take more questions, maybe 3 or...
Please be precise in your question. Short questions.
Thank you, Dr. Ramadan. My question is, we are 5% Muslims here in Switzerland. And I realize we have a lot of problems as Muslims living in Switzerland to speak up to the people. We have a high resistance. For example, a Muslim finding a job, or a Muslim in school, or a Muslim in the politics, or Muslims about laws. And I was thinking, what is it? Is it that Switzerland or European has to have a higher tolerance for us? Or do we Muslims have to change? But because we have a high integrity in Switzerland, I'm born and raised here in Switzerland, and I think I know enough about Switzerland and law to live here. But I have always to fight against people, because people always have a different thinking of Muslims. So what will you think for the future? Do we Muslims have to do, or what should change that we can live in peace together with other religions than Muslim? Thank you.
You will answer, or should we proceed? Okay.
A short question. It's about a claim. I'm claiming that it is much easier saying I'm an American Muslim than saying I'm a European Muslim. Do you agree with that? And if not, can you elaborate why not?
Ja, herzlichen Dank. You've been talking about that the Muslims, we should not talk about Islam anymore, but contribute over our added value. And that we should also support, as you call it, an intellectual revolution. So the question and the thesis I would kindly ask you to comment on is, many of the Muslims have the impression that if they really try to do as you said and proposed and fire this intellectual revolution, have no chance to really do so. Because now the thesis comes, and I would like to ask you to comment on that one. And those people have the impression that they are not allowed to add this intellectual revolution, because if you break down all the problems that societies face, not only in Switzerland, not only in Europe, on the whole globe, is, as you also said, is a socio-economical problem. But if you break it down again, it's the economical problem. And the Muslims should be very clear about this concept, because the Quran tells the Muslims exactly what kind of stance they should have towards capitalism. And this is the real problem. And now, because the capitalistic economical problem is tightly connected to the sociological side, and that the intellectual revolution would deal exactly with the economical problem in the Muslim way, which means we do away with that system. And this is not allowed and wanted by all the ruling leaders and society movements. And so the thesis is, this is the reason that the Muslims cannot contribute on that revolution is that all forces are really strong to keep up that economical systems which we have to live in. Thank you. Sorry for being long, but this connection had to be made.
Thank you for this amazing speech. I have the feeling that over the years, the hate towards Islam has always been here in Europe. if we take a look at the different German books, for example, it's always that Muslims are named as Turks in the way, in a bad way, which means the hate towards us has been here for a very, very long time, in my opinion. Do you think this is so, and if so, why?
So, to my opinion, I came to the conclusion that there is a lack of awareness how to, I mean, there is a lack of awareness of how to be a good citizen. So, as you said, everyone should know about these universal values and how the life of a person should have the same status independent of where he or she was born. And how can we increase this awareness? How can we make people more aware that only because you were born a Swiss does not give you more privileges towards, I don't know, life or towards human rights? So, I don't know, if you could comment on how to increase this awareness of citizen, how to become a critical and good citizen.
Okay, we may start with one last, okay?
Yes, okay. My question is basically, you said in the media, we have in a lot of talk shows, like two sides. There are always extreme Muslims who are invited, like, I don't know, people who are living Islam like in Arabia, and then there are the liberal Muslims who are denying anything in Islam. And then you also said about the silent majority of the Muslims. So how should we wake up these silent Muslims? Do you have any suggestions on what they should do besides speak up?
Okay, so there are lots of questions. I'm trying to take some of them, and with Alain maybe we can complete each other. You know, about the fact that we are talking about one Islam. Once again, I'm talking from a religious, quote-unquote, theological perspective. If we come to Islam, a set of common principles between Sunni and Shia and all the schools of law, all of them. What we call al-Aqidah, the 6 pillars of faith, and the 5 pillars of practice, they are all the same everywhere. So this is Islam. And in the definition is also giving limits, as for example, that we think that the last prophet is the messenger is the last prophet. It's part of the creed. This is Aqidah, and this is how do we define it. Now, having said that, Islam is a religion of the book, and a book, by definition, has many interpretations from the very beginning. In the history of the legal Islamic tradition, we had more than 30 schools of law. So there is a diversity. So this is what I meant by this. Add to the interpretations, and the interpretations are not as we have the good and the bad Muslims as we have today. No, we have literalist, traditionalist, rationalist, mystical. We have all this. This is Islam. So we have many interpretations. And we have many cultures. When I speak about European Islam, I'm saying Islamic as to the principles and European as to the culture, and there is no problem. And even in Europe, there are many cultures. Now I'm more radical than you about, I don't put conditions to who is a Muslim. The only thing which is the starting point is not about behavior. Anyone who is saying, because he or she believes in one God, and the messenger is the last messenger, is the Muslim, and no one can put him or her outside. Period. So this is it. Then, and now to go as far as to say, when you look at people who are not Muslims, you know what, you are Muslim without knowing it. That could be problematic. I'm not sure that you will be well calm by saying this. Even once in the TV program, I was talking about jihad, saying, you know, jihad for justice and everything of this. You know, this is it. And I was talking to the presenter saying, even you, if you are promoting justice, you are involved in jihad. I say, what? So I say, you maybe have to be cautious. Okay, with some of the, even though I think that this is a jihad for social justice. A very good question about what you were saying in as a Swiss citizen, and you see the state of affairs within Switzerland. I would say, is it for the society to be more tolerant and for you to change your mind? It's a two-way process. And the starting point of the question is not to put you in one side and the society on the other side. And then it's your society. It's your society. Don't look at the people around you as them. It's your society. The people who are elected are your people. Your neighbor are your fellow Swiss citizen. So the mindset by saying who is responsible and should, no, you first as a Swiss citizen, and this is the way I'm putting it. You say, okay, now how can I change things? I should be involved. And as a subject, as a citizen, a Swiss citizen, this is why we have to deal with the society saying, what is my role within my society to make it more open to this diversity and pluralism? I'm part of the answer to this when it comes to, you know, being involved with the society and challenging the political authorities, the media, and the people around me. I myself is a media. I'm within the society, so I have here to be involved. So we have to change our mind in the way we look at our society and to be involved. And then to make it clear from the very beginning, because it's a two-way process. If you are within the society, you should stop hoping to be accepted. You should respect yourself as a citizen and go for your right. It's a struggle for right. Citizenship, it's about right. It's about I am in my country. And I'm not going to let anybody lecturing me about, you know, I have to do this to be accepted. And I like Karen Armstrong, you know, I don't know if you know her. She was saying, who on earth wants to be accepted and tolerated? What's that? I want you to tolerate me? That's not the way to start a discussion. So we had to change the mindset and to come and say, okay, look now, yes, there are problems, there are misunderstandings. So what is your role? Spread knowledge, be part of the discussion. There are discriminations. Is it only to blame the system? No, be part of reforming the system. And not Muslims versus the system. Swiss, with all the Swiss people who are ready to struggle for that. The problem is that we don't have this. And once again, be careful with this, because we have too many Swiss Muslims. They want to take the best of the system, but they are not ready to struggle for justice. And it's exactly, I'm saying this because we are following in the footsteps of what is happening in the United States of America. Many Muslim immigrants are buying the American dream, and they are racist towards the African American. They come with big values, great values, but they are within the system. On this, they are completely integrated, but not the right way. So I would say here that it's a two-way process, and we have to be involved, but it starts with our psychological input into the discussion. I will stop with these two questions here, maybe you have to.
Yes, about this thing, I really think it's important to have common struggle. I'm a believer of this for a long time, and I discussed with Tariq about this. I mean, what will make us nearer in the society is the fact that we are in common struggling for something. And you know, I know, I mean, how Muslims feel, and I have been fighting against Islamophobia and racism, etc. But you know, if I take the case of France, racism is a part of the history of France for a very long period. And not against Muslims only, not against Arabs. I said sometimes, you know, when you read what was written in the French press about the Italian or the Spanish, really no newspaper will dare write something on the Muslim like they were speaking about in the 30s about the Italian or the Spanish. How did this change? How these people now of Italian descent in south of France are voting National Front and feeling themselves French? It was through, most of them were working class, and they participated in the struggle in the working class, in the Front Populaire, in the liberation of France, etc. Of course, the situation is completely different, but I really believe that you will not, I mean, you, if you call you Muslim, you will not reach what you want alone. And we will not reach a good society without you. So it must be that it will not be all the Muslims and it will not be all our society. A part of the Muslims are not interested, they are individualists like other people. A part of the French society or the European society are racist, etc. But there are, but it can be changed. I mean, it's not something completely fixed. And it can change through struggles, through common struggles. I mean, in France, if I take the example in which I am involved, the struggle against Islamophobia, and this is a very old discussion we had with Tariq about what we do together. Because when the book we made in 1999, the first time we went, we were doing this kind of debate, and it was very clear. When it was a Muslim organization organizing it, there was only Muslim. And when it was white organization, there were only white. And we decided it was not possible to continue like this. We wanted to organize in common, because it's not, it seemed for us to be the most important. And again, I think this is the way forward is to come together against Islamophobia, for Palestine, but not only about the struggle which concern, in some way, Muslim. I mean, sometimes we had a discussion about, I think it was Indonesia, which is a Muslim country, and they were oppressing the people of Timor, which were not Muslim. What we do? Are you, as a Muslim, in solidarity with Indonesia because it is Muslim or not? And are we fighting together for general principle? I think a part of the Muslim were with Indonesia because I thought that Indonesia, as a Muslim country, should be supported. But this is a discussion. I mean, I think the Muslim shouldn't go in the street or mobilize only for Muslim questions, because this is a contribution to the Islamization of all the problems of our society. About the idea also about one Islam, of course, this is a question to Muslim. I mean, I don't have answer, but what I can say is the fact that what I can see is that there are many political positions from Muslims. And I don't think, at least for the next decade, a moment where all the Muslims will agree on political position. I mean, the king of Saudi Arabia is Muslim, and the president of Iran is Muslim, and Bashar al-Assad is Muslim. So the division is a part of the reality of the Muslim community, and we should accept it. And I am fighting for acceptance of this diversity. When the people in France say the Muslim, I say, of whom you are speaking? Even when they say the Islamist, I answer, what do you mean by Islamist? Do you mean the Muslim Brother, the Hezbollah, Hamas, Al-Qaeda, the Islamic State? It's even the political movement which are claiming they are part of an Islamic tradition, they don't agree on many things. So this is also, this diversity is the reality, and we should accept it.
If I may, because there are some...
Working.
It's working?
Yeah.
Quite quickly, because you were asking a question about is it easier to be an American Muslim or a European Muslim? Once again, very often the people, when they are in Europe, they are idealizing America and say, you know what, it's very easy to be a Muslim over there. You go to the States and say, you know what, you are doing well in Europe. So at the end, it's not right. And you have to compare the like with the like. There are many things that, for example, in the United States of America, being a Muslim in a daily life, it's easier. But we have to be, once again, cautious. The American Muslims are not only the immigrant American Muslims, it's the African American Muslims, and the African American Muslims are dealing with the problems and very difficult problems in socio-economic terms in races, because blackness and whiteness is still working in the States. It's not because they have the first African American that has been elected that things are solved. And you have seen the 3 students who have been killed, and even it took days to Barack Obama to condemn this, because in fact it's the Turkish president who told him, how come you are silent when people are killed? And this happened in the United States. So I think racism is there, and you have campaigns now in the States about, you know, Sharia bill in 23 states. I think we have to be very, very cautious with idealizing the states in this and the American dream. It's not easy to be an American Muslim today. They are facing same problems. And the pressure is very strong. In political terms, it's very difficult. Freedom is not the same. Suspicion is everywhere. And we have to be also quite clear about the domestic policy of this, the American government now. You should know now that in the States you have people who are innocent, who are in solitary confinement, and they have been so for years, just after September 11th, and nobody is talking about this. So I think we should be very cautious with this on daily life. And for example, even in the UK where I live, the way that you can dress the way you want. Of course, in daily life it's easier, but when it comes to employment, when it comes to Islamophobia, when it comes to discrimination, when it comes to getting jobs, it's a different story. And my take on this is not to try to compare societies, but I say, you know, in France it's better, in the UK it's better, in the States. I would have another approach towards this, is to compare the principles of the society with the practices within the society. I say, okay, if you want to, I'm not going to waste my time in France to speak about Britain. In France I speak about the French principles that the politicians are claiming to respect, and then what is happening on the ground. And I would say that is exactly the same. Even here in Switzerland, when people are saying, you know, Switzerland is a racist country after the pastors that were seen by everybody around the world with the 2 white sheep throwing away a black one, say, what's that? It's it's a racist country. I think we have to be once again very cautious with generalization. Even with country, we should not generalize with Muslims, but we should not generalize with Swiss and with French and with Americans. I think that's the wrong way of doing it. I didn't say don't speak about Islam. I say speak less about Islam, which is a bit different. And what Alain just said is very true. You are saying that I agree with you, but we are not representing all the Muslims. I really think that Islam, by definition, is an anti-capitalistic religion. That's my position. So I'm sorry, we don't agree on that.
No. It's a question of definition.
No, but against interest and against speculation, I think that. No, but let me finish. So this is what I think. Now, I'm meeting with so many Muslims. The only thing that they have as a problem is interests and speculation, but they don't have a problem with the system itself. We just had a discussion about economy with scholars in the center, and somebody said, a very rooted Muslim scholar, it's you know what, Islam is a regulated capitalism. So it's exactly what Sarkozy was saying about, you know, we need an ethical capitalism. I have a problem with that by saying this is, we might challenge this. But so the discussion here, it's once again, we need to accept the fact that in political terms, in economic terms, we may have the same faith, we're not going to have the same political positions. We are finding people in all the different parties and all the different. So this is a discussion that we need to have, and understanding that it's not because we are not sharing the same positions that we are less or more Muslim. So that's also something which is important, our political take on this. And once again, Saudi Arabia is a very, very conservative country when it comes to implementing the rules, but it's a capitalistic economy. It's completely a capitalistic economy. So this is why we don't speak about the country as an Islamist country, because it would be a contradiction in terms. So we avoid talking about Islamists, even though they are saying democracy is not Islamic. But in fact, the economy is completely matching what is expected by people who are dealing with resources. What you said about racism, it's an old thing. I think I agree. I agree with you. It's very old. Now it's a bit different because this perception of the other, when it was, reducing Muslim to Turks, it has to do with history. Now we having here. So I think the new phenomenon of Islamophobia with it, it's a bit different from projecting the other. Of course, the mechanism could be the same, but the way it has to deal with us in our daily life is going to change, and it's changing now. And we see in the name of Islamophobia which type of policies are justified, or which type of discourse could be justified. So I would say here it's a bit, it's the same rational, but not the same impact, or the same also goal when it comes to what is happening with people. So once again, it means that we have to avoid essentialism through history and through countries. It's a bit more complex than that. So this is, I don't know if you...
Still questions, 2 or 3 short questions, and then we will close. Yes, coming.
My name is Anna. Thank you for this inspiring speech. Well, my question is to the topic of identity. My English is very bad, I'm sorry. Well, it's about roles. When we are born in a Muslim family, we have Islam gives us a role how to act, how to act as a Muslim. Then while we are living in Europe, in Swiss, or me in Zurich, the Swiss community shows me or gives me a role how to act as a Swiss student or citizen. And they accept also that I have a critical mind. Sometimes I think that Islam is also for freedom, that sometimes I meet people who aren't able to think critical, and they are afraid to be even critical against Islam. You said about intra-dialogue, where we can share, interpretations or just a dialogue. But I feel that we need also inter-dialogue, a dialogue that is in our side, between me and myself, which is, it's not a question, but I would like to hear your idea about it. Thank you.
Hello, thank you. So, before you said that one should speak less about Islam, and I think that if we go further, one should also speak less about religions, and I think that the effect that you might produce through this is that one thinks less about separations through the religions or other kind of institution. So I think if we think about kind of long-term solutions, so one should, as you said before, learn from all these differences, and these differences makes one richer. And if we take the best out of these differences and take the set of values that are created through these differences, shouldn't we, in the long-term solutions, not base our lives anymore on religions, but on a set of values created from all the differences from all about the world? Because, as you said before, this is not the center, and there are other things. And yeah, my question is exactly that: shouldn't we think about this set of values instead of religions or anything?
Yeah. A last question. Yes.
Thank you very much for this interesting discussion. I have a question also regarding the intra-community dialogue. Are we doing enough there? Because I have the feeling that we often complain about our situation, we complain about the conduct of others, but I heard today that it's really important for the Muslim community in Europe and in Switzerland to also engage in a critical intra-group dialogue. And also, the question for me is a very practical one. How much should we do for the intra-group dialogue, and how much should we defend against discrimination, etc., from outside? Take the niqab as an example. If now as, let's say, Islamist groups in Switzerland provoke a general discussion about whether niqab should be allowed in public or not, and if right-wing groups take this up, and in a few years we have a general debate on whether niqab should be allowed or not, should we, as Muslims, what should we do? Should we get dragged into this general debate and try to defend the wearing of the niqab, although we do not actually agree with it and we do not want it? Or should we rather try to preempt such a general discussion by really trying to engage more vividly in an intra-group dialogue? Thank you.
Just about two questions. This question about what we do with extremist group, or what we do, I think the fact to think about it not only as Muslim. I mean, Tariq said something about the hijab. I don't have, of course, religious position about the hijab. I mean, of course, I don't like it, to be very frank, but I can condemn the way the French government is doing with it, because they are creating a problem, and they use it only to create a problem. It's not a position about the hijab per se. It is only the fact that we must understand this. So after I understand that among Muslims it's more complicated. But perhaps a way to answer it is to not only to answer as Muslim, but also to put it on general values. What we are defending here in Europe, and on some principle, and why are these principles violated when it concerns Muslims. The second question it's about values. You know, I believe that there are some global values which are common to religious and non-religious people. but I don't think we can define it in a way where United Nations will meet and say, okay, this is the value of everybody. Because there is also diversity of values, there is different situations, there is different philosophical conception. And for me, who has no relation at all with religion, I'm not very interested to know if somebody who is Muslim, Christian or Jew is believer or not. I want to know if he has common things with me, which is, in general, from my point of view, very concrete. To be against war, to be against discrimination, etc., etc. And this is forging common values. But I don't think we will reach a moment where we can say all the values are, we will define all the values. And also on the question of the religion, it's also very difficult to imagine a way you can ask people who are religious to say, okay, we put them beside us and we think only of general value. Because the value of each of us is coming from a long history of education, of the history of its own country, of its own people, etc., etc. I don't think we can separate. I mean, if you are a Muslim, I don't think you can separate the fact of being a Muslim than the fact that you are defending some values.
So I will also just try to respond to the questions. There are two questions very quickly that were asked about the lack of awareness, how to be a good citizen. And I think that this is an important question that we have to deal with. And by the way, it's not only about, it's about all of us. So how now we can promote a better understanding of citizenship. It's quite clear that there should be an involvement of every one of us within our families. And I think that this is also something which is important. The us versus them mindset starts at home, and then we have it in the mosque. But it's also something that we have to deal with the way we are working at the local level. When I was talking about the new we, this call for a new we that I launched, this was 10 years ago, it was a national movement of local initiatives. This is, we have to work at the local level. This participative democracy, which has to do with the local involvement. And if we come to the Islamic principles, in fact, even if we think about zakat, it's all about where you are with the people you live in your surrounding. Start here. So this civic engagement and commitment has to be at the local level. In our education, it's very important. In our schools, there is a lack of civic education in our schools. And this new philosophy that we have, that it's all about our rights and that our duties and our commitment towards the society is problematic. I think that this is also something that we have. You know, it was at the beginning of the 90s, I wrote a book about Muslims in secular societies, and the subtitle was Duties and Rights. But duties is our way of dealing, and citizenship has to do with this. It's important. You were also asking a question which I still think, and I thought that maybe also Alain, maybe you may add also something about this. It's about our presence in the media. Because this is a very important question, because you are right, you know, media is a means and it could be a weapon. And if you want to nurture the image that Islam is a problem, either you take somebody who is an extremist in his views, or somebody who is saying exactly what you want him or her to say, which is mainly what we have. For example, we have in the UK Newsnight. The one who is the more often invited is Andrew Chaudhry, who is the one who was saying we have to kill the people, we have, and he's a lawyer, and he can see this, and he's invited every other month, he's there. I said, why are you inviting somebody who is not representing? So there is here something which is a political game, and add to this that it makes money and audience when you have such a, because you know, to be nice and kind, no news, no, it's not attractive. But this is where we have to understand today that first we have to start also playing the victims with the media. We have to be more vocal, and we have also to work with alternative media. Today is this, we have to be on internet, we have to work on this, and we have to find people who are, and keep on talking, and it has to be at the local level. So not all the journalists are playing that game. I have lots of journalists who are serious about their work, and you have to find them. And you have to be committed, and you have to be also, so I think that we are also passive by saying all the media, no essentialization even with the media and the journalists, because it's wrong. And once again, of course, it's a system. It works in a specific way, so you need to know how to deal with it. You have to be, it has to do, it's a business, it's a profession, it's a serious thing. It's not, you cannot just be amateur when it comes to media. You know, the way you express yourself, the way, and once again, what we want now is more and more Swiss citizens speaking German or Swiss, the Dutch in the right way, or French or Italian, and being able to express as people in this country. That's also very important, because now, for example, even in France, they are taking, you know, an imam who is the supposed voice of the Muslims. It's completely broken French, that no one is just, and it's an insult to take somebody like him to represent the Muslim. So I think that we need here to be much more also committed on this, and maybe Alain would add something about this, because it's important. That's a very important struggle. The media presence is an important one, because this is where the image is also very important, and to be also self-critical. There is something that I want to tell you, because this is a personal story that I have with Alain. Once, it was in 2000, I was in Paris and I went to see him at home, and he told me something about, you know what, there is something that should be said about what is happening in the suburbs, about the way Muslims are nurturing anti-Semitism and promoting it. He's the one who told me this, and say, I would say, and then I discussed with people. Just a few months later, I wrote an article in Le Monde about anti-Semitism within the Muslims, because no one, and I'm challenging every one of you here, no one can deny the fact that there are some Muslims and Arabs confusing the struggle against Israel with Judaism. And it's true, it's something that, so we have to be quite clear on this. We have to, so to be in the media means to be consistent. To be consistent, not to be selective in our struggle. So that's also the way we have to be. It doesn't mean that we are going to please all the Muslims by being in the media. And it's something which is also important, to go to the media, yes, but to say what? What is your message at the end of it? What do you want to say? Just to say that you are nice? That Islam is a religion of peace? By the way, it doesn't mean anything, a religion of peace. Because if I have somebody who is going to kill me and exploit me, I have to resist. So it's a religion of justice. It's a religion of peace, yes, but with the condition of justice. Not peace without justice. If now the Israeli government is calling me for peace, I say yes, but we have to talk about lands first. You understand? This is also something which is, I think, important in the way we are courageous, in the way we speak about it. So very, what you were saying about, no, I don't agree with you about the set of values that, I don't think we have to start the discussion like this. Because you might think that this is the final stage for you, that the set of values are going to be, but no, I am a Muslim, a committed Muslim, a practicing Muslim, and I believe that there is truth in this religion. And no one is going to come to me and say, in the name of beyond the values that are beyond your religion, you have to know. my point about talking less about religion is not to make the religion the final discussion about everything. Out of my religion, we have common values. So don't, and we should not, try to tell the people when they have the shared values that in the name of the shared values they have to forget about the root that is bringing them there. So I took in one of the books, The Quest for Meaning, the image of the mountain, by saying at the top of the mountain, at the summit, there are shared values, but there are roots bringing us there. Respect the roots. And don't try in the name of the monopoly of to forget about others. No, we have people who are Christians, and they are sincere, Jews and Buddhists and my take on this, it's very difficult to deal with diversity, but there is no option. So I wouldn't go for syncretism, and I wouldn't go for no differences. No, I think that we have to manage and to understand. And you know, at the end, I would say that there is something which is very important for all of us in this process, because we are learning what I call intellectual humility. Intellectual humility is, we might have the shared values, but we are not the same. We don't come from the same background, and we have different practices and things. And I think that this is part of something that I would keep, for example, for myself. And the last one is the intra-community dialogue. No, we are not doing enough in intra-community dialogue. But I wouldn't go for the way you were putting it by saying, do we have to, we also always have this problem. We have some Muslims who are saying, there are so many, so active in society, say, I need my spiritual education. So they stop any kind of social commitment and they start praying during the night and being very mystical. As if spirituality is pray during the night. No, spirituality is not that. The true mystical trend is pray during the night and change the world during the day. That's the point. It's not isolate yourself from the world. Pray, reform yourself, and then come to change the world. And I would say here that we are not doing enough intra, but it should not be this at the price of the other. We should do both. So we need to talk to Shia and to Sunni. We need to talk between reformists and literalists. We need to talk between different trends. We need to have this internal dialogue, yes. But if in one country the right of somebody, even if you disagree with him or her on religious matter, you have to protect her or his right to be free to do it. I would say that it's not either or, it's together. It's a commitment together. And I would say here, connecting this to the other question that you have, it's quite clear that we don't have enough critical thinking in our community. It's as if when you ask questions, it proves that you have less faith. So this very simplistic equation, be faithful and shut up. What's that? And this is why, a convert, an American convert, wrote a book by saying, even the angels ask. Because in the Quran they ask. So now you are telling me that to be a good Muslim I have to keep quiet. No, the critical thinking, it's important. And as you were saying, the critical thinking starts with your own self. And I would say a true religious education. And this is something that, and once again, let me finish with this before Alain may speak about media, but there is something that I keep on saying to people. You know what? The West, and me being born and raised in the West, brought me something which is invaluable. It's beyond any value, which is to understand that I will never get deep faith if I am not questioning. If there is no space to question, there is no in-depth in the way I believe. I don't want to believe by repeating, I want to believe by understanding. And if this is coming back from the West to the Muslim majority countries, I will bring it back there by saying, I can't accept anything which has to do, you have to be a Muslim following the majority. You have to be Muslim because you are consistent with your questions and your answers. So I think that this is part of the answer.
Just one word about the media, because I think also we should understand that the Muslims feel attacked by the media and they are right. But the problem of the media is a different problem from Islam. I mean, Islam is not the only problem of media. The problem the media is functioning in our democratic society is a real problem for democracy. It's not only on the question of Islam, it's on all the questions, the way the political debate is happening in the media, the way they are speaking about international questions, etc., etc. So, I think that the fight for changing the media is a very important one in democratic society, and you should be part of it. And second, we can be active. I mean, I hear so many times, especially on the Palestinian question, that you know the media they are in the hand of the Jews, that we cannot do anything. It's not true. It's not true. There is a diversity, and there is also the possibility for everybody to fight, especially now with internet. I mean, which gives a voice to the people who has no voice, and with many, how to say, you don't need many money to do something on the media, but you should be active on it. You should be active on popularizing something, some struggle, some facts that are hidden by the media. And we see concretely that sometimes something is, which the media didn't want to speak of is coming through Twitter, through Facebook, etc., etc. Some also very stupid things come from Facebook and media. But as I said, it's not only social media who are lying, but also the normal media who are lying. So it's a very important struggle, and I think we could be part of it. And I gave Roland a part of things I have done. I have created a media on internet called Orient 21 about the Middle East and the Muslim world. And we have done it with some friends. Really, we don't have many finance, etc., etc. But it has permitted to hear something different about the Middle East. And it shows that we can do something, and everybody can do something. You know that today, in principle, I think, on Monday, there will be the verdict of the policemen. I don't know if you remember, in 2005, there were 2 young people killed running from the police. And the trial had been going for 10 years. And there is a group of people, Muslim, non-Muslim, who has done from the trials, have done a kind of web documentary with people reading what was said at the trial. It's a very, very strong document. And they have done it. I mean, I know them. I mean, it's young people, and they wanted to do it, and they have done it. And I think it will have an impact. So we can do something, and I think this is very important.
Thanks a lot. In the name of the Red Fabrik, I would thanks Alain Gresh and Tariq Ramadan for this constructive speak and debate, and to enlarge our horizon. I hope we take some material with us and think about it to fight and struggle for a real open society. Thanks a lot, and goodbye.
Weil meine Nummer kenne ich nicht auswendig. Ich habe das auch nicht. Hier ist das.